All in politics. What's going on, everyone? This is Rob Cooper, along with Walt the Jamager. What's going on, Big Walt?
What's going on, big brother? And we got a very special guest tonight. We got Tim in the house with us tonight. But I can't do this way. Let me usher us in to another exciting adventure of the All in Politics platform on the All in Politics network, as we always do at this time. And we welcome you, the listener, to another exciting adventure after these crazy elections that just took place. So we're going to use this night to bring about the platform, and we're going to bring out some good, very exciting topics this evening. So as you would,
That's
my co-host,
right.
Mr. Rob Jr.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And of course, our other esteemed guest host that we have on often, Mr. Tim from IMT. That's the International Marxist Tendency Group, and we got some exciting news to talk about. Some events that they have coming up this weekend, and I know folks have been electioned out. We've been spending all last week finding out who won the election now. And we pretty much, that picture is pretty much clearer. Now, we want to start talking solutions now. We don't want to make the mistake that we made 12 years ago when, and rightfully so, people were really excited when President Obama took office. But the problem was, on January 20th, we all went down to Washington, D.C. We clapped our hands. We drank champagne. We ushered, in my opinion, one of the greatest presidents of all time. That's just my opinion, into office. On the 21st, we got a hungover, and we went home and went back to sleep. And we went to sleep for not 12 hours, but for 12 years. So now we're woke. We need to stay woke, and we need to continue on. But first of all, I just want to bring in our special guest, Tim from IMT. What's going on, Tim?
Thanks. Yeah, and it's always a pleasure to join you guys and chat. It's really a pleasure to be here, and thanks for having me on. I'm happy to talk about this stuff. It's a moment in history.
Yeah, and one of the reasons why, Tim, we bring you on because we always kind of want to keep in mind when we are discussing politics, but we want to also one thing Tim does is keep the focus on the working class, and he helps us kind of bring it back to that, because oftentimes when we watch corporate media, your CNNs, MSNBCs, your Fox News, we know that their focus are on the 1%, the billionaires. And oftentimes they're going to give you the news that benefits the billionaires, the Amazons and the other ones. Well, working class folks, this show is for you. This network is for you. We are here. We're all in politics. And we like to say we give the voice to the voiceless. And one of the things right now, man, I really want to just kind of jump right into it and really address the elephant in the room before we even get to the elections, before we even get to President-elect Joseph Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, and before they can even get to any of their platforms and their agendas. There's this ugly thing that still is around since we even started this podcast, and it's called COVID-19, the coronavirus. And as of today, the United States has close to 11 million confirmed cases, and also about close to 245 deaths. And just today, November the 13th, we broke another record. As of 10 a.m. this morning, we have 153,496 new cases. We're hearing, many of the politicians from Bill de Blasio to Governor Cuomo to some of the other politicians in and around are already now talking about the I guess the four-letter word to many people, particularly the capitalist class, and that's called shutdown. Let's talk about that. What does that mean? I mean, we did have a chance to see it briefly, But fellas, what does this mean to you guys when you hear the word shutdown and COVID-19 and these rising cases?
Hey Rob, let me I forgot to also introduce this into the beginning of the podcast to our esteemed guest Tim. I want to congratulate him because he recently uh, is a newlywed. So before he
Yes,
gets into
sir.
his
Yes,
his
and
information,
a
I
homeowner.
do want to extend
Hmm.
Wow.
yes, I want to extend the congratulations on both accomplishments and the best to you and your wife, Tim, your newly
Oh, thank you so
wedded.
much.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
wow. Surprised me. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. It's it's really great. We're both really happy to be able to accomplish those things, and especially during this year. And we really appreciate your congratulations. That's really sweet of you guys.
Major congrats, and please give us your regards to your wife, our new addition to the All In Politics family.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, Walt, while you had the floor, just give us some of your thoughts when you hear shutdown. What does that mean to you? And then we'll get your thoughts, Tim, afterwards.
Like I said, the situation with this COVID has gone well beyond the means of stretching natural resources and debilitating human life and suffocating America's growth at this time. I do believe that we have to take a very serious step in a direction to try to curb it or try to alleviate the fact that it's stretching beyond immeasurable amounts across the nation. I just looked at a map the other day and they were showing how it just looked red. It just looked like temperatures in Arizona and temperatures you would see like in these Midwest regions. I mean, it was the temperament at this time is just well beyond words right now. I mean, you have people dying, you have ICOs being overcapacitated, you have medical staff being understaffed and unable to get a hand on it. Somebody has to come in and take drastic means to get this thing in control.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And Tim, when you hear, these politicians now talking about the shutdown, what about the working class, man? What does that mean? And you know, where do we go from here if that's the case? Because we saw a lot of the protests scene that happened before. A lot of folks, it wasn't really popular with a certain faction of the community, and also wasn't the business owners, and as well as the working community. Kind of like what are your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, under a shutdown, people are upset about the shutdown or protesting it because under the system, if you don't work, you're facing financial ruin, and your life is destroyed. So people would be very upset at being told to stay home if they're going to lose their job or not be able to pay their bills or put food on the table or support themselves. And there's no other way of support except to sell your labor. What we really should be doing is paying people to stay home. We could then shut down properly and safely without people facing ruin. But that again would challenge this sort of corrosive idea of keeping people on the edge of precarity so that they feel they have to go work, and you see this admitted by our politicians where they don't want to offer too many incentives because they say people wouldn't be willing to go back to work, or they can't increase unemployment benefits to certain degrees because people are getting paid more in unemployment than what they were making at their old job. And I think that's more of an indictment of the level of what we pay in wages, especially when you look at how much money is being made at the top while this pandemic is happening. I mean, astronomical, record-breaking amounts of money getting funneled upwards, while people are being basically told two options: either stay home, without, any form of childcare while your kids are in school. Like, you have to find some way to work from home and watch your kids, or potentially lose your job, or risk your life and continue to put food on the table. And that's the two options that we're giving people, and those are really the two options that are acceptable to the American ruling class. And really, there are other options there that would be asking our 1%, our upper classes, to sacrifice, which they're not willing to do. Of course, they would much rather have everyone go back to work, and having a handful percentage of people die, which is completely acceptable to them. We're already facing 250,000 dead, which in my opinion is criminal, but to them is acceptable. And they're basically humming and hawing about where the line is of acceptable death. Where do we shut down? They all remember what happened in March. They all remembered how the line that they all love cratered, how the stock market collapsed, and they that's a nightmare that haunts them, and so they're kind of debating with each other. Where's too many deaths? Are we going to wait for people dying outside of hospitals, which is already happening in some states? I think North Dakota especially is already just maxed out on their hospital beds, and they're trying to figure out where is that appropriate line to shut down. But then the real solution would just be to shut down and pay people so that they don't feel they have to protest because of their livelihood is at stake.
Wow. Well, now Tim basically brought up a real radical ideal. He said that we should be paying folks to stay home during a shutdown. But so, folks, if you think that's a radical ideal, that's actually something that the government has already done. They've actually paid roughly around 600 people, $637 billion to stay home, but not the rest of us. Well, what's your thoughts on that, man?
That's a real good assertion. But we also got to understand. Can you guys hear me? Because it's not like
I can.
Okay, like that's a very good assertion as far as paying people to stay home. I mean, we're looking at a stimulus plan, and we're looking at trying to get ways to get these people, monetary stabilization while they are unemployed. I was even looking at the fact that maybe they need to look at something tax wise, where they may have to build up like some type of bank where they can actually, have people pay into like a situation such as this, volatile situation where um, a natural disaster may take effect, where people may, take out of what they pay into. I mean, Aflac has something where, if you have an unemployment payment out to you, if you're in a debilitating situation, you get a premium paid to you. Maybe the government probably would make out if they made a provision where if something happens to the average worker, that they can be compensated and don't have to worry about where their next meal is going to come from, or where their next payment to come from, if they have something asserted into their livelihood that can help assist with that, downplay of not having employment. So that may be something that they may need to look into in the future when making legislation.
Right. Well, one of the things that we can really talk about with COVID-19, with it really being in the forefront of the public's ideal since the beginning of the year, and it really cranked up in March. COVID-19 was definitely on the ballot, and as we saw throughout past last week, on Saturday. All the major networks declared Joseph R. Biden president-elect and Kamala Harris as vice president-elect, defeating Donald Trump. And as of today, the vote tallies or something like this for the Electoral College, which is the only piece that really matters. Joe Biden right now currently is holding at 306 Electoral College votes, which is the same amount of votes that Donald Trump had 4 years ago once he defeated Hillary Clinton. And, one of the things, though, the biggest pieces that, I like to talk about is the energy and enthusiasm in this election. We've already broken the record. We're heading well into about 155 million. We'll be knocking on the door of 160 million voters that came out to vote. Joe Biden will probably hit about, high 70s, maybe 80 million votes, where Donald Trump is hitting around 72 to 73 million votes. So a lot of voices were heard. And one thing I will talk about this. As far as the democratic process, out of all of the elections, this is the first time where I really saw the elections being so transparent. And those of you who have followed our podcast, I've started giving you votes that started coming in when we hit the 4 million mark, and that was probably over a month ago. And it steadily increased. So we were anticipating the turnout that we got. And one of the things I would say, in order for a democracy to truly work, we truly have to have one man, one vote. I'm a little uneasy with the Electoral College. I have my reasons for that, but I just believe that number one, it's outdated. And number two, I think, quite frankly, it's just undemocratic. It's the reason why, someone who's winning by darn near 8 million votes is still sweating it out, man. So Tim, let's talk a little bit about that. The number one, democratic process and the high voter engagement. But why did we have such a high engagement here? I mean, we're looking at probably 20 million more folks that came out to vote this time that didn't come out and vote in 2016. And I'm going to put a little clip on you. I'm going to say you have to answer your question without mentioning Donald Trump. I'm just joking with you.
Okay. Challenge accepted. I think there are two reasons for that. One is that I think there are a lot of more people engaged in politics. I think a lot of people who did not really consider voting important or as much of a difference to them. They felt that this time it really did make a difference, was really important. I know my politics was definitely shaken by the 2016 election. I think a lot of people's politics were very shaken. And a lot of people became very politically active for the first time. So I think that contributed. But I think the biggest factor was the basically expansion of the voting infrastructure in this country. With the pandemic, they had to do drastic measures to make voting accessible. It would have been a nightmare for this election to have a record low turnout. The US enjoys about 50 to 55 percent of eligible voters, which is quite poor compared to other democracies. This year we reached upwards of 60%, I believe. Double check the numbers, but it was an improvement. And I think that's a lot to do with making voting more accessible. Because if it was record low, I mean, we already see sort of the conspiracy and confusion and it's really kind of shaking the uncertainty of this election to its core. It's sort of starting to resolve a little bit, but imagine if that was the case, if it was record low turnout. So they really had to step up and make it easier to vote. There are a lot of obstacles that we put in the way. It's on a working day. ID checks. We already, even now we saw 4-6 hour longer lines, which, we were talking about people facing, uncertainty with their job. I'm trying telling your boss that you need to skip work to wait in line for 6 hours, especially if you're in a conservative state or if he's, a Republican. So I think the biggest factor was just a massive expansion in the infrastructure of how people can vote. And it shows you if we made the election day on a weekend or a national holiday and, really opened it up to nourish and foster participation instead of largely what we do now, which is discourage it, especially in targeted areas, that we would, regularly see this turnout. But I think those two. I'm not gonna say that people weren't more motivated this time. I think that was also a key, but I think it was even larger extent to just the effort that the people in charge of running the elections put into expanding, the capabilities of people to vote.
Now, Rob, we've had the backdoor conversation. We've had the backdoor conversation about the accessibility, and we often joked about it. And I'll say it for the sake of the podcast because we joke. So we'll talk about the individuals like the corner guys that drink and smoke, trying to get them into the electoral process, and then we got those other vagabonds that we try to get into the fray as well. The accessibility. Now, America's image of accessibility would have you believe that everybody has the right and they can exercise the right. But as Tim pointed out, that is contrary to what one is to believe. Like the accessibility may be presented, but it's not being afforded to all people.
Yeah, and I agree. I think one of the pieces, and I've often said this, both to my kids and to other folks who I discuss politics with, a lot of people say, well, why does my vote count, right? They're only going to they're not going to do anything but put the guy in there who they want in there, in the first place. And, oftentimes that is a true statement. However, when the people come out and vote, in large numbers and break records, it's kind of hard to cheat, right? You know what I mean? When they say, oh, they're just going to throw it into the Supreme Court. And I said, yeah, that's very well that they may. But, let's throw 80 million votes at the Supreme Court and see how they juggle that. You know what I mean? And as we can see now, you're seeing in many reports, the Supreme Court wants no part of this. You know what I mean? Now, if it was, 400 or 500 votes, and they can see that they can spin it away to get their conservative candidate in. Absolutely. But, I think the Supreme Court has saw the visions of people dancing in the street. The working class folks, went out in the middle of a pandemic, broke records and selected their president fair and square. I would want to be that Supreme Court justice to overturn 80 million 80 million people's, wishes. I just think that just calls for, a disaster and possibly not only would cause for destruction of our democratic system, but ultimately, destruction of our nation. Walt, your thoughts?
Yeah, I totally agree. And
yeah,
and like I said, my thing is, I think that this electoral cycle exposed a lot of America's frailties.
right.
And until we can revamp and restructure the whole way of what we've been taught to believe to be true is reconfigured, we're going to keep coming to this point every 4 years and thinking every 4 years we're going to look for a new savior. So it definitely has to be restructured and revitalized.
Tim, everything wasn't, hunky dory for the Democrats. If you go down the ballots, of course, obviously the number one focus was to take out Donald Trump. But, first of all, I'm going to say a lot of the socialists that were on the down ballots, I believe they were undefeated. They all won. I believe I heard a stat that, and I'm not going to say necessarily we're all socialists, but the folks that supported Medicare for all, there was 112 representatives on ballots across in various offices that they were running for that supported Medicare for all, and they went 112-0. They went undefeated. On the other hand, you had some folks from the DCC, and you guys can help me out with that. What that means, I forget what it means. But in other words, it's the conservative wing of the Democratic Party. They're more centrist wing of the party. They didn't do so well, and Tim, they started taking shots at the quote unquote socialist wing of the party. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think any groups that were sponsored by DSA or running sort of out of them, or at least endorsed by DSA, did quite well. I remember either all of them won, or one lost, or maybe one of their proposals that was on the ballot lost, but they did very, very well.
Right.
While on the Democrats, they're probably going to lose the Senate. We'll see in Georgia. And I think that election is going to sort of be a microcosm of where the Democrats are headed in the future. We already kind of are getting a hint of where they're going. And they got the candidates they wanted. I'm thinking of in Kentucky, they defeated Cory Booker, who was a senatorial candidate who was running on issues like Medicare for all and other very popular proposals. They were the DNC. The Democrats were threatening people who worked for his campaign with being basically blacklisted, sort of showing sort of how they control the fundraising and the sort of the behind the scenes of how they kind of operate their party. Despite that, he almost beat the darling Amy McGrath, the Democratic darling Amy McGrath, but she ended up pulling out the win in the primary. And they love her because she raised tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars. People hate Mitch McConnell, rightfully so. So people from all areas of the country donated her campaign. She had a real knack for fundraising. And she lost by a record amount. She lost by, I think, almost 20 points, 20%. A complete stomp, despite massive, massive, massive money being spent. And as we just passed the COVID-19 topic, and you think about that in the context of what we're talking about now, is worrying and problematic. Same in South Carolina, massive, massive spending of a Democratic rising star got completely owned by Lindsey Graham. So, and we kind of saw this pattern. The presidential election was scarily close. I mean, if we didn't have electoral college, it would have been a complete blowout, and I argue that should be the case. But as far as the system we have now, it was way too close for the Democrats. We were told, the polls told us that it was going to be a complete blue wave, and it almost looked like 2016 over again. I would argue if we didn't have a pandemic rampaging through the country with 250,000 people dead, it would have been 2016 over again. Despite all the problems that Trump brings to this country. And I think that shows that they are the bad strategy and sort of almost like a misread of the situation of the Democratic Party, or at least, as you said, the DCC, the Democratic Central Committee, the higher ups, not the elite of the Democratic Party and who they surround themselves with, and the focus groups that they're getting told about, and the consultants that they're being told about, or whispering in their ear and sort of what they're being told the situation is. I think they're completely alienated from the voters they're trying to win over. And we already see that they've learned all the wrong lessons. They came out with the presidency. They lost seats in the House. They are going to lose the Senate. And they're already bashing the left. They're already blaming the left. They're already jettisoning any proposal like Medicare for all these calls to defund the police. They're calling these things toxic, and saying that that's not the way to win. And we already see them embracing this in the Georgia Senate runoff, where they are refusing to run on these issues that are very popular even among Republicans, and I would argue would be their path to victory. But the people who run the party, if it can be called a party, are completely unaware of that and are being told by the people surrounding them the exact opposite. So
it is. And Walt, public enemy number one in the Democratic Party is Donald Trump, obviously. Public enemy number two, you would think would be Mitch McConnell, but it's not. Public enemy number two is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC. And I was, a couple of moderate friends that we have, called me up, woke me up, and frantic, oh my God, AOC keeps talking, and AOC is going to, lose the Georgia election for us. I mean, what do you got to say about this faction of the Democratic Party? Are we just scared rabbits running around, or are we true political strategists?
I think more so is just the fear mongering. I mean, it's ridiculous, man. Cohesiveness and unity is power. And until people start realizing that we're not going to be able to move in a more progressive manner than what the word really truly stands for. I believe we had a conversation earlier today. I have 5 now-laters, right? Human consumption.
Right.
Well,
hold on.
Believe you can
we got. Hold on, Walt. We got 2 young boys on with us, Elijah and Tim. Now laters, when we grew up in the hood in Philly, we go and buy these now laters, and they were gummy type candies we got from the corner store. So go ahead. It ran up our parents' dental bill.
I believe they know what it is. I know.
I'm aware,
I know for certain that they know what now laters are. So for the sake of argument, here we have 5 now laters. They usually come in like 5 to 7 wrapped packages that were easily, dispensable and whatever you can get to them. But you have 5. Human consumption will tell you can only take 1 at a time, right? So in the conservative mind, you'll say, oh, well, look, this is all mine. I'm not sharing it. This is my favorite flavor, blah, blah, blah. Socialistically, you'll say, okay, I have 5 friends. So it's more than enough for me to have some. Let me disperse it amongst my friends, because you want to share in that which finds joy in yourself with your comrades or your associates. Many people don't believe that to be true. They want to have and hold on to what they have and minus the populace or whatever else may get gratitude out of it. And I think that's where the problem lies, because everybody is looking for self-gratitude and self-gain, and they don't want to dispense it among those that don't have. So that's where I believe the Democratic Party is having a problem with. The progressives that's looking at it for the totality, where there's just some that just want to hold on to the minority.
That's right. And we live in a what we call a swing district, the Pennsylvania 10th congressional district, where we had what we thought would be a competitive race between the incumbent Republican Scott Perry and Democrat Eugene D. Pasquale, who is slightly a moderate to conservative Democrat, who, by the way, won our district twice statewide when he ran for Auditor General. And I'm just want to bring in Elijah Cooper, who's the producer of All In Politics and founder of the All In Network. Elijah, you actually reached out to Eugene and kind of urged him to move more to the left to have any shot of winning. Of course, he didn't take your advice, and he walked away with the 8-point L. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I only wanted to jump in for this part of the podcast for this reason. And it's because, you know, one of the main things that Scott Perry did during his campaign was essentially attack Eugene's positions and political stances, but he lied about all of them. Like most of his political ads were debunked by political fact checkers. And one of those lies that he ran in one of his political ads was that he supported the Green New Deal, and I believe defunding the police. And in the ad, he had AOC, who is the biggest enemy to any conservative, and actually had her face in the ad, essentially linking Eugene to AOC. Later, multiple political fact checkers came out and obviously debunked that. That was not a part of his platform. And that was one of the things that he was on his social media promoting, like, hey, this guy's lying. I don't support these things. I commented on his Facebook status and said, you should be supporting this. However, you've got my vote simply because someone who would run an ad with a blatant lie like that needs to be out of office. So I did vote for Eugene. Because Scott Perry is a Trumper, essentially, who doesn't believe in science. We just need to get those people out of office in general. But in order for you to be able to, and first of all, we live in a highly conservative area. Like, I can't remember the last time a Democrat won York County. Dad, you might know that better than me. As far
Never.
Election. Yeah, I don't think ever. So you're running in a highly conservative area. And for you to run on a conservative platform, you're not going to out conservative the conservative, right? Like Trump won this area by a large margin, so Scott Perry naturally aligns himself with him. You're not going to beat him by being, hey, let's come to the middle on this. I don't support these progressive ideas, but let's get back to normal. Well, the issue with that is what's normal for the working class. Right? What's normal for us is massive student loan debt. What's normal for us is police brutality. What's normal for us is extremely high healthcare bills, right?
Healthcare, exactly.
And one of the largest voter turnouts in this election was the age group of 18 to 25. I just moved out of that demographic back in September. I'm 26. But obviously, I can relate to that demographic. And I can tell you now, I speak to obviously everybody I know is in that demographic, essentially, or slightly outside of it. No one in that demographic wants people in office with a centrist, per se, platform, right? We want Medicare for all. We want the Green New Deal. We care about our environment. We want student loan debt canceled. These are things that are popular amongst a new part of the new demographic. Thank you, of the electorate. So if you're not willing to, adopt policies that people in that electorate want, you're not going to activate voters to vote for you. Scott or Eugene's best opportunity to win here would have been going going directly into the working class, activating voters in the York City area. If you look at what Stacey Abrams did, she is also in a highly conservative area, right? Georgia has voted red since 1992 until this year. And it went blue this year strictly because of the work of Stacey Abrams. And so what she did, they saw someone who looked like them, and ran on a platform that they felt benefit them. She went out, she did the work. She registered 800,000 people to vote in Georgia, right? I think that was the number that she ended up saying that she went in just for her race. Who knows how many more? She probably hit 1 million, right? After she lost her race, but in preparation for this presidential election, maybe. I'm speculating, but the amount of people that she registered to vote shows you that there is a demographic out there that is not currently involved in the political process because they don't believe in Democrats who aren't supporting these ideas. And it's from our demographic.
You know what it sounds like?
Yeah, well,
it sounds like the inception of starting a pack.
Right, right. We'll talk a little bit. We'll talk a little bit
Yeah,
about
well,
that. And we're going to talk about, one of the things, how we can kind of keep this movement going. And Tim, you've been a part of some great movements with IMT, but also I think you mentioned on our other show, I believe, I think after the Bernie run, the DSA. I think their membership doubled, tripled to a certain extent, of more folks joining the Democratic Socialist Association. Why do you see that? And I know you're a little bit more closer to those numbers. Is the Democrat? I mean, excuse me. Are the demographics generally a younger demographics, or is it across the board?
That's a good question. I don't actually know the answer to that. I would imagine it's younger, but I don't feel confident actually answering that question of like the actual age demographics of who's joining it. All I know is that they are getting massive membership as they did after the 2016 election. And I want to begin with what Elijah just said, where he's talking about the Democrats basically running on a new normal, or bringing back the center. And I think the mistake is, as all the great points he brought up, was that no one likes the status quo at all. Like, the status quo is broken. And what Democrats are failing to do is offer any alternative whatsoever. There is no future or other ideas that they're offering. And all these ideas that are coming up, like how about we have a universal government-run health insurance system like every other developed nation on earth. Why don't we not allow the police to execute citizens with impunity? Why do we not do something about the ecological collapse that we're rapidly facing? And they don't want to shake up the status quo. But these politicians that are in power largely came to power under the status quo. This is what they know. This is what they're comfortable with. And they're very threatened by anything different. And their donors and their supporters, like their real supporters, their real constituents, their capitalist donors are also threatened. But to offer, the winning ticket is to offer an alternative and to offer a way forward, to offer these new ideas. Before I kind of address, what the future is, I kind of want to talk a little bit of a historical example with 1932. When we're entering a depression, things are really bad. No one likes the status quo, and FDR basically ran on a New Deal. He didn't really know what that was. No one really knew what that meant. It meant a lot of things to a lot of people. It's sort of like the Green New Deal, where there are ideas and policies that are kind of laid out, but it's a little vague. But like, people were desperate for any alternative at all, and because he ran solely on the system that we have right now is broken, I'm providing an alternative. It was a massive blowout in the election. Just complete wipe for the Democrats. And now you have, in very similar circumstances where like things are falling apart, that you have one candidate saying, I do not support the Green New Deal on a debate stage. The opposition party terrified of offering any alternative or anything new. And I think that's their fatal flaw. To sort of bring it forward, and especially with the DSA, it's very exciting to see that membership. I would argue what they need to do is, instead of running through the Democratic Party, like AOC is sort of realizing, she calls herself a Democratic Socialist. I believe she's a DSA member. There are a couple others. They're realizing what running through the Democratic Party means, how that really isn't a real party at all, how it's run by a small elite circle at the top that largely determines things, and how they'll basically impede you or fight you on every single step. And what we really need to do is offer an alternative to that. The DSA could start there. They could start running as an independent party, maybe starting with local elections. They don't have to like shoot for the moon right away, but they could start running independently at local elections. And importantly, have a sort of a established party, like an actual party, where the candidates are accountable to the party members. That is not the case in the Democratic Party. I don't know the last time any of the listeners went to their local Democratic Party meeting. That's not the case. They're not really a party at all. If we had a actual alternative party, DSA is a great place to start. It exists. It has a great membership. I mean, I think it would be a great, catalyst. If you had an actual program and an actual way to hold elected officials or nominees accountable to the party, I think that's really what we need. And once you start offering an alternative that people can count on, I mean, the Democrats and the Republicans can talk about all they want about what they're going to do for the working class, but I think people have had many years of not trusting them, rightfully so, right? They lie
Right.
flat out. So even if they ran on these policies, no one trusts them. No one really thinks they're going to do it. But if you had a party that offered not only a way forward, but a building on a record of actually fighting for that, whether or not it meant winning or losing elections here or there, but as having a principled stance, I think that would grow very rapidly, especially as people will become more and more disillusioned with the Democratic Party. I think a lot of people who have their hopes in Joe Biden, Kamala, are going to be met with the harsh cruelty of austerity, more state violence, home and abroad, and more just corporate corruption as we see Joe Biden stacking his administration with corporate executives. So
Yeah.
I think
And,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Walt and I, we grew up listening to all kinds of tapes and recordings of, different lecturers who would come out and speak on different topics. And one of our favorite, lecturers, and I'm not going to mention his name, but Walt will know when I say this little line. He said, he was talking about us. He said, "Hey, well, I'm with the Democratic Party, and I'm with the Republican Party," and he'd say, "Fool, you wasn't even invited to the party."
To the party. Right.
and
Exactly.
that's exactly where we are, and that's why we're so thankful for IMT, DSA, the grassroots law process. Law project. These are organizations, and I'm not going to diss the Democrat or the Republican parties, because right now they're two institutions right now in American society. But what we clearly don't have here, and I think we may be one of the only democracies out there that, other than maybe a fascist state where they just have one, but I think we're the only ones that only have two. You know what I mean? They're, even in, I think, the UK, they have the Labour Party, they have the Conservative Party, the Liberal Party, whatever. So there's different options. And what I like to say is, folks, is some of those these great organizations out there. Obviously, we want you to go on, IMT's website. They have, meetings on a weekly basis, both, locally, nationally, and even internationally. These folks are doing some amazing things, and, have some amazing people in there, that's working on a grassroots level, like Tim is, and some of his comrades. I think, Tim, let's kind of get into this. again, as we mentioned earlier, we're probably going to have about 155 million folks who were engaged in these elections. We can't go back to sleep. We absolutely can't. But you also can't. I can't imagine anyone will stay awake if we just say wait, for in 2 years for the midterm elections and then go out and vote again. Yeah, no, it doesn't work that way, man. We gotta start. We gotta start today. And getting involved. And matter of fact, not today, this weekend. And we got an exciting event coming up with IMT. Let's talk a little bit about that. After the 2020 elections, preparing for the American Socialist Revolution. What's that about, Tim?
Yeah, thank you. So I am a member of an organization called Socialist Revolution, which is the American section of the International Marxist Tendency. And we are having basically a national event this weekend, starting at 1 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday. And it's basically a talk to just sort of assess where we are after the election and to discuss a lot of the issues that we face. So we'll be having a talk on Saturday, just sort of assessing the election and why there is a need for revolution, especially primarily a socialist revolution. And then we'll also be discussing later that afternoon, 4:30 Eastern time. There'll be 2 talks, one on the George Floyd uprising and police terror in this country. And then there'll also be a talk on the climate catastrophe and the need for a planned socialist economy to address it. And then we'll be meeting again on Sunday for a talk. There'll be talks again at 1 p.m. Eastern about the labor movement and how to revive its revolutionary socialist traditions. And then there'll also be a very important talk on at the same time, 1 p.m. Against femicide in Mexico, which is a struggle that our comrades down south are facing, and showing solidarity with them and addressing those issues. In the end, we are an international organization, and the struggle we all face is international. And then, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was saying, I'm waiting for you to finish so that way we can put up a platform. If you can expound on it, to give a platform where they can get more information on, and whatever address or whatever else they can get on.
Absolutely. So yeah, I'll just wrap up and we'll wrap up in the final talk about fighting for socialism in our lifetime. Just sort of a encompassing talk. But people who are interested or want to attend can go register at socialistrevolution.org. There'll be a quick link about it that you can click and register. Donations and purchasing a ticket is appreciated, but not mandatory. You can attend for free if you have to, but supporting our organization is always appreciated. We're not funded by capitalist donors or anything. We're funded largely by just our members and sort of a grassroots organization. So purchasing a ticket is appreciated, but I don't want you to feel that you can't attend just because, like many people, you're facing some hardship. And I think that anyone who could attend and register even for one of the talks would find it very enlightening and very rewarding and interesting. So right now, it's all about spreading these ideas and having these discussions and, sharing our politics so that, we can all discuss what needs to be done, how important it is to organize and have a revolutionary perspective, because honestly, right now, that is largely the only way forward out of the impasse that we're at.
It's interesting because, I got to, like I said, I had this conversation with one of my more moderate friends, and, they were complaining about AOC and folks from the grassroots law organization and organizations like Socialist Revolution, who are actually right now putting, demands on the plate of President-elect Joseph R. Biden. And they were like, "Hey, I'm concerned about this because this is going to mess up the Georgia runoff, and things like that." But I'll go back to even what Obama said in 2008 when he talked about the fierce urgency of now, and I think that was a term that he borrowed from Dr. Martin Luther King. The fierce urgency, of now. And I like to tell folks, if not now, when? If not, me, who? You know what I mean? And I want to stress to folks, this is why we're bringing this, this podcast, to you, because I don't believe that politics is a spectator sport. It's not about, being an Eagles fan or a Cowboys fan when you sit down, you drink a beer and eat popcorn and chew on and cheer when your team scores a touchdown. No, you have to actually get into the game. And that means you sometimes you're going to be asked to block, sometimes you're going to be asked to tackle. That's what politics is. It's a contact sport, and if you choose to get involved, you must be engaged, and you must stay engaged. It's not
That's
one
right.
where you can turn the switch on and turn a switch off. And I do want to say to folks, if you're enjoying, All In Politics, this show, as you see, is on YouTube. This, as well as the All In podcast with Elijah Cooper and Mike Batson. We have Rain and Bliss show, and we have some other great shows on the All In network. And when you go over to, you can either go to allinnetwork.net, the website. You can catch all these shows off our platform, or you could just simply go to YouTube. And I'm so glad that my friend Walt is back, because he's back here and he's going to tell you to do what when you get to that YouTube channel, man.
Oh man, look, this is a great time that we choose to be in right now. So I'm going to tell you, when you grab the opportunity, whatever device you seem to want to use at the time that you use it, you want to jump up, turn around, do your little two-step dance, turn around, grab it, smash it, and smash that subscribe button to the All In Podcast Network.
That's right. We want you to smash that subscribe button. Well, this has been, fellas. This has been another great show. Again, Elijah Cooper, another great job in producing the show. All In production, another great All In production. Tim, man, thank you for joining us as always. Once again, congratulations on your nuptials and also your new home. Again, it's all looking up, and we really appreciate you continuing to fight on the grassroots. So, Walt, man, do what you do, my brother.
Like I said, it's been another exciting, adventurous event. We thank you for Elijah for bringing us together to bring us here. Tim, you definitely bring uh, insight to what we need for a more formidable matter to move this country forward. If more people share the vision that you share, I think we'll be more of a amiable situation. So, with that being said, keep your eyes open and your ears open to the streets. People, please, we did provide the information inside the podcast and inside the YouTube descriptions if you want to get down with anything that you heard today. We are working on trying to get a call in where we can have live interaction views with our viewers. Be alert, be vigilant, and stay on task. And with that being said, I'm your host, along with my co-host, Robert Cooper Jr. I'm Walt the Damager from the All In Podcast on the All In Network. We love you, appreciate you, and good night.
Peace.